Do you find yourself scrolling through Instagram or TikTok for hours at night, even though you haven't eaten anything in at least 2 days and feel like a starving kid from Africa, and the only time you stop is when your stomach starts burning? Well, you're definitely not alone. Research shows that about 50% of people spend at least an hour every day watching food videos online. Sure, at first that number might not seem like much, but remember, that hour is all about food, nothing else. In this episode, we're diving into yet another one of Randy Marsh's unique moral and personality quirks.
God damn. Yeah.
This time, it is his addiction to food content on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Not only does he stay up until 2 a.m. like the rest of us, watching steak recipes before bed, but he literally can't sleep without it.
What are you doing?
I'm making a pan-roasted chicken.
Like sear it on the stove and then put in the oven?
He even sends his wife to bed alone, and as you'd expect, this habit catches up with him, but right now, Randy's completely out of control. Randy's behavior has crossed the line from normal to full-on addiction. It isn't just that he enjoys these videos, he also does, well, other things while watching, sometimes keeping a hand suspiciously hidden under the covers.
Whoa. Oh.
If you're also mildly horrified at the thoughts that you too might end up like Randy, getting hormone surges from Gordon Ramsay's content, don't worry. Research shows that if you only spend 1 to 2 hours a day on food videos, you're just a bit obsessed. It is harmless and won't lead you down the same path as Randy. On average, people who spend 2 to 4 hours a day thinking about food, food influencers or food bloggers, have a medium obsession. If food's part of their job, there is no problem. But the last category, that is Randy's turf. Full-blown food content addiction. This can be cooking shows, binge eating, or cooking for hours on end, taking up 4 to 8 hours of their day, messing up their whole life. We'll show you how Randy's life spins out of control, all because he can't get enough of pasta making tutorials. According to eMarketer, 25% of people actually consider themselves food content addicts, which is a lot. That is 1 in 4 people who can't resist watching at least 4 hours of food videos daily. Anyway, as I was watching cooking shows with Randy, we came across a familiar face. Paula Deen. You probably know her. She was huge back in the day, around the time South Park aired, with one of the most popular cooking shows, a couple of cookbooks, and even her own restaurant. Paula cooked classic southern dishes that were easy for folks to make at home, which made her super popular. But seeing her on TV with Randy was weird because 3 years later, she was about to go through a massive scandal. In 2013, one of her restaurant customers accused her of using the N-word, which she admitted to.
I is what I is, and I'm not changing.
And damn, she was cancelled, big time. Her reputation tanked, and she had to rebrand to stay in the industry, even changing her name. Now, if you know Randy, you know his crazy antics don't stop there. He won't quit until he takes things to the extreme. So the next morning, everyone wakes up to see Randy making breakfast. The man who used to be too lazy to fry an egg is now whipping up a frittata for everyone, leaving the kitchen looking like it survived a small war.
Can I have a Pop-Tart?
And of course, his poor wife is left to clean up his mess. A sure sign of food content addiction is when it isn't enough to just scroll through food videos on Instagram for hours. Everyone does that. These addicts get hands-on, and they start cooking like maniacs or even skipping work to make fancy toasts. And it isn't because they want to be a chef. Randy doesn't even show up to work. He's just watching cooking shows and making breakfast all day. This isn't some hidden culinary genius from a southern town getting a Michelin star. This is Randy Marsh, folks. He's just not it. He keeps at it, oblivious to the fact that his family is watching him, giving me secondhand embarrassment. I felt like I was Randy doing all that in front of my kids and their friends. The guy is honestly so cringe. The only thing that can snap Randy out of it? Women's fitness commercials. I mean, even I myself stop and watch those because they're one of the coolest things on TV. But for Randy, nah, he's only interested in juicy ribs, brined meat, and the sound of a steak sizzling on the grill.
Aw, stupid commercials.
And that is what gets his hormones going, not a bunch of fit women working out with, well, a certain piece of equipment that looks way too similar to a part of the male anatomy. The big surprise with the equipment is that when you're done, it sprays water on your face just to cool you down after that intense workout. That's it. But as soon as the ad's over and we're back to slathering butter on a steak, he's all revved up again. But before he can get too into it, the channel suddenly goes black. And guess who's behind it? If my dad pulled anything like that in front of me or my friends, I wouldn't just block his channel. I'd probably put the TV out of commission too. But this time, it wasn't Stan flipping out. It was Randy's wife who just couldn't take it anymore. Instead of snuggling up next to her at night and actually enjoying some couple time, Randy was glued to watching Gordon Ramsay curse people out and toss them off the show. It is just one more thing that happens to food streaming addicts. Like any addiction, it drives people away from their family, their affection, and even their bedroom life. And for Randy and his wife, things just got out of hand, all because Randy was too hooked on these shows to notice that every episode she was forgiving him when she should have been sprinting to the divorce lawyer. Now she couldn't enjoy watching food shows alone without being bitter about it. Back in 2010, when social media blew up, online food content started popping up everywhere. It began on TV, but then it crept into every social network out there. By 2023, if Randy and Sharon were still dealing with this, and just blocking a TV channel wouldn't cut it. He'd need a full-on rehab camp with zero internet access.
It's time to stop!
Or maybe you should have to quarantine him at home with 24/7 guard duty. Escaping these shows now? Not exactly easy. At first, they were just simple cooking programs teaching recipes without any frills. Nothing satisfying or steamy about them. Then, shows like Bon Appetit, Tasty, and Binging with Babish hit the scene, bringing fresh recipes so folks could cook up something creative at home. But Bon Appetit managed to stir up some drama that really ticked people off. Bon Appetit was just a regular cooking show until it blew up on social media in 2016. Its show, It's Alive with Brad Leone, featured this big muscly dude who'd cook but also crack people up. I mean, what more do you need in a cooking show? Their YouTube channel pulled over 6 million subscribers, and as they brought on more creative and talented team members, their audience just kept growing. From 2013 onward, Bon Appetit grew up from simple recipe videos to a full-on content machine with personalities that could entertain people for hours. Bringing Brad on to whip up new recipes and sometimes mess them up was exactly what people wanted. He was funny, talented, and even when he messed up, he was so chill you'd think it was all part of the plan. And their YouTube channel and magazine were super successful. Well, until 2020. Then, in 2020, things got real. The pandemic hit, and some past and present Bon Appetit employees started calling out a racial bias in the kitchen. White chefs were paid more, got better contracts, and the recipes featured were usually ones from white backgrounds. When someone pitched a traditional black recipe, forget it. After this all went public, a bunch of chefs quit, and almost the whole on-screen team was replaced. They ended up having to totally rebrand to move past it. Seems like in this industry, when someone messes up big, they just slap a new name on things and pretend it never happened. Still, they've got some fans who just shrug and say, hey, maybe they did the right thing, who knows. As for Randy, he's feeling pretty defeated, but he's got one last trick up his sleeve. He calls up a food hotline where the person on the other end describes how they're seductively frying up a chicken breast in the pan for a mere $10 a minute.
Billing is $9.95 for each 60-second period. To accept, say, cream fraiche.
This shows just how massive and profitable this industry has become. They've thought of everything. Even if your wife blocks your channel, you've still got options. Of course, Sharon heard him from the other phone and let out a scream that had Randy running like the Roadrunner. After cooking shows, this industry shifted to competitive cooking competitions, popping up in every country with its own versions. Some of the most famous ones, like Top Chef, Chopped, and Master Chef, still haven't had a scandal yet and kept their original names, but they've had no shortage of critics. Take Master Chef, for example. It's one of the most popular cooking competitions on TV, with judges like Gordon Ramsay who can demolish someone's self-confidence in a second.
Stupid cows!
Leaving them traumatized enough to scream every time they see a kitchen. There's another judge who does the same, though he's not quite as intense as Ramsay. He's like the Simon Cowell of the cooking world, living to judge people harshly. Slowly but surely, these shows gain such massive followings that even companies like Amazon, Netflix, and Hulu couldn't resist joining the trend. There's been massive investment with boatloads of cash thrown into this industry. To give you a sense of just how big it is, let's look at some figures. By 2025, this industry is expected to rake in a cool $8.1 trillion in revenue, which honestly, I don't even know how many zeros are in a trillion. And just the online and internet ads tied to this stuff, they're worth around $300 billion. I mean, I can't even comprehend that kind of number. You get an idea of the scale when people like Selena Gomez and Hailey Bieber, who are already making bank doing their thing, jump in and start their own cooking shows. This industry is huge and super lucrative. Annually, this industry generates about $100 billion in profits for anyone involved. This includes everyone from content creators to food delivery drivers. Influencers can make anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 per post for this content on their social media. If they're really killing it and have tons of followers, that could even go up to $50,000 per post. So it is no wonder some big-name chefs and celebs pop up on YouTube just to react to making a basic French omelette. Sure, most of the people who are obsessed with these shows are Gen Zers. About 70% of them follow online food content. But around 60% of millennials also say that over half of their monthly food choices are influenced by food influencers. It is like these influencers are deciding what we eat. Let's be real. If you're craving fast food, chances are you watched one of these videos beforehand. Research backs this up, showing that this industry is literally changing our eating habits. And if you're a better to say addicted viewer like me, you'll know that they're putting cheese on everything now, like absurd amount of it, and everything's deep fried, which isn't exactly healthy, especially for kids. This boom has led the industry to collaborate with influencers, celebs, and actors. Pretty much anyone who's online has made at least one appearance on a food show. Take Hot Ones for example. If you haven't seen it, your favorite celeb probably has. They line up spicy wings, each one hotter than the last, and the celeb has to eat them while answering questions from host Sean Evans. Two of the most popular episodes, Jenna Ortega and Jennifer Lawrence. Now, it isn't like back in the day with Randy Marsh, where it was just about TV and raunchy late-night phone calls. Nowadays, food is everywhere. YouTube, TikTok, TV, Instagram, you name it, and it's taken over, growing every day. But even though it is tougher to break in now, people aren't giving up, and they'll hang on to even the smallest slice of revenue they can get. And these social media algorithms, they know exactly how to keep us hooked. You watch one food video and that's it. Your feed is basically food from then on, even if it is just short YouTube clips or Instagram reels. Click it once and soon your entire feed is filled with food content. Unless you delete your content, there is no escaping it. Apparently, 35% of social media users say they're only there to watch food content, which is wild. Like, people open YouTube just to watch Nikocado Avocado devour 2 massive buckets of fried chicken, and that's it. Honestly, this is getting a little scary. I might even dress up as a food content addict for Halloween. Remember Randy? His obsession with food was wrecking his marriage to the point where, while he's roasting a pig in the bathroom, Sharon goes and buys one of those motivational fitness devices with a voice assistant that is a little too encouraging. And when she's done with her workout, it even gives her a refreshing drink and cab fare. This whole scenario is purely innocent. If your mind went somewhere else, that's on you. But Randy's so obsessed with food that he's totally clueless about what's going on around him. He ends up quitting his job just to work as the school cook, and things get worse when he serves the kids some fancy crab claw dish instead of pizza.
It says very clearly on the lunch schedule that today is pizza day.
Everyone knows kids love pizza more than their own parents. They don't care how much the food costs, they just want pizza and mac and cheese.
Roni with the chicken strips.
Serve them anything else, and they'll ditch you for it. Then you have the new wave of shows where people are cooking in the wild, like in the middle of a forest while traveling to random places. It is like Anthony Bourdain, who used to try all the traditional foods of different regions right there on site. But some of these new shows are taking it to the next level by getting into food science, teaching techniques, skills, and how the chemistry between ingredients works. Think America's Test Kitchen or Good Eats with Alton Brown. With so much high fat and fast food in these shows, channels promoting healthy living and eating also started popping up like Pickup Limes. That is where I learned about baby vegetables like baby corn and baby carrots. Before that, I'd never even heard of them. We just threw parmesan on salads and call it a day. But the thing that hit this industry like an atomic bomb and flipped everything upside down was this new video style called mukbang. It's a Korean term, a combo of mukia, meaning let's eat, and bangsong, meaning broadcast. You've probably seen at least one of these videos where someone's just munching through mountains of food, usually Korean, while engaging with their viewers. As the name might suggest, it all started in South Korea with someone named Kang Mina back in 2010, right when this whole thing was just becoming a trend. She kicked it off on a platform called Africa TV. Then these videos just kept blowing up, getting more creative, like with ASMR sound effects, and the food portions only got bigger. People's reactions to these videos were all over the place. Based on the millions of views, it is clear that a lot of people enjoy them. I even remember when this trend first took off, some people said, we're always eating alone and watching these videos makes it feel like we're sharing a meal with someone so we don't feel as lonely. Then, there were parents frustrated that their kids wouldn't eat, claiming these videos actually help their kids get their appetite back, which is a win for anyone dealing with picky eaters. But personally, watching someone devour that much food so intensely, it honestly makes me lose my appetite. I feel kinda queasy. Mukbang isn't just Korean food anymore though. Now, countries all over the place are making these videos with their own cuisine. But here's where it gets a bit dark and twisted. There are some really disturbing stories connected to this. One of the most controversial ones, a mukbang creator named K-Tiop. You've probably heard the name. The whole thing made my skin crawl when I first heard it. It made me think this industry, like anything that makes serious money, can be pretty messed up. So in 2018, a YouTube channel named K-Tiop popped up, like so many others who'd been at it for years. She'd sit down, eat massive amounts of raw seafood on camera, and initially no one thought much of it. Tons of people were doing the exact same thing. But then people started to notice weird stuff. Bruises started showing up on her body. Strange male voices could be heard behind the camera telling her to eat faster. And there were even captions hinting that she was being tortured. And just as all this online chatter was blowing up, she disappeared. No videos, nothing for 3 years. This only made people more worried and fueled rumors that she might have been kidnapped by someone who was forcing her to eat like that. So what do you actually think about K-Tiop? I'll tell you my take. I think she, or whoever manages her, is a marketing genius. Maybe she's even backed by a big producer because it all feels super planned. Every sound, every help me subtitle seems totally intentional. There's no way an editor would miss something that obvious, especially if they were in on it. And even if her editor was somehow her kidnapper, they wouldn't just let that slip. No, the goal for her and her team is purely money. And I really don't think there's any kidnapping or forced eating going on. But some people are convinced. They say, look at her face. You can see she's eating under duress. I mean, what do you mean? Put that much food in front of The Rock and even he'd struggle to eat it, especially if it is raw seafood. Have you ever tried raw seafood? It smells so bad you'd want to stay miles away. But she's shoveling it and like, it is nothing. Honestly, it is impressive she's not gagging. I think there's a certain type of person who'll believe K-Tiop was kidnapped and is being forced to eat. The same type that believes the earth is flat or that we never actually landed on the moon. You know, always in the hunt for a good conspiracy theory. But the story of mukbang isn't all about people like K-Tiop. What actually made it revolutionary in the industry is this whole concept of food porn. No one really knows who said it first, but it's guessed to have started somewhere around the early 2000s, right when internet food content started to trend. Basically, it is exactly what Randy Marsh loves, and making food sexy. We're talking close-up shots of food meant to make viewers feel, well, certain kind of way, especially if the viewer happens to have Let's say certain impulses like Randy himself. Anyway, we've mentioned a bunch that these kinds of videos are major cash cows, mainly because people actually enjoy watching them. But why do we put ourselves through the torture of watching all this delicious food we can't even buy right now? Well, one reason is that just looking at food actually fires up the brain's reward centers, so we get a nice little brain treat without actually eating anything. It is like visual satisfaction, though no, not the way Randy would do it, and can even sometimes reduce cravings. Although I personally disagree on that last point because there have definitely been times I couldn't sleep all night just thinking about a meal. Meanwhile, Sharon's off living it up with her new exercise toy, like so busy with it, they even go on vacation together to sunbathe by the beach. Meanwhile, Randy's got the whole school hating Stan because just about everything he cooks is, to put it nicely, trash. But no, Randy won't back down. He's not leaving this path of culinary chaos until he hits rock bottom. So he decides to start a cooking show right there at school, with Stan and the other kids as his whole production crew. He is driving everyone insane. Let's be real, we've all had that moment while cooking where we thought anyone can cook, and then acted like we're hosting a cooking show, sprinkling parmesan and adding a single basil leaf to the plate with tweezers. But at least I never took it as far as Randy. I was more like showing off my grandma's recipes on a local show. Another mukbang legend who totally shocked the internet is Nikocado Avocado. I'm sure you've heard of him or at least know about all the drama because his name has been everywhere online. Sometimes I even dream he is saying, "I am always 2 steps ahead." And let's face it, we've all had that moment where we see one of his videos pop up with his face in the thumbnail, and we're like, nope, not clicking on that. But the guy's the reason I believe that Katie Up's whole story is probably just for views and cash. Nick started posting mukbang videos on YouTube 5 years ago, and honestly at first, they didn't even get that many views. Plus, he was actually skinny back then. But by 2016, the mukbang scene was too big to just waltz in and grab tons of views. There were bigger players in the game, so if he wanted to make serious money, he had to do something wild, and he really went for it. With all the food he ate, he just kept getting bigger and bigger, and he even picked fights with other big YouTubers just for more views. The first time he really caught everyone's attention was when people noticed how much his weight and appearance had changed in a few years. It got to the point where people thought he was eating himself into an early grave. And honestly, he kinda was. His health was tanking. He was doing all sorts of bizarre stuff on camera, like eating with an oxygen mask on and saying he was in the hospital. So yeah, people kept watching, and then he didn't post anything for a whole 8 months. Only to come back with a video titled 2 Steps Ahead, and it totally blew up. After those 8 months, he looked like he'd gone back in time 6 years, all slim with none of that extra weight. People were like, wait, what? Because with things like stomach surgeries these days, weight loss isn't that shocking. But after all the weirdness of COVID, it takes a lot to surprise people. In the video, he explains that all the videos of him looking heavier were actually filmed over 2 years ago, and he and his team just kept uploading them little by little while he was secretly losing weight. So yeah, he's now as famous as Gandhi and making Kardashian money. But I bet he's got a lifetime of health issues ahead of him and probably won't ever get back to his 2016 self. And though he seems pretty pleased with himself for fooling everyone and making social media his puppet, I'm not sure he's really all that happy. In the end, the only person who could have knocked some sense into Randy Marsh was Gordon Ramsay himself. But how were they supposed to get him there? Sure, they've managed to get the head of the FBI, the US president, and even Hillary Clinton on before, but Gordon's got a mouth on him, so it is no easy feat convincing him. Cartman, dressed up as Gordon Ramsay, is trying to lure Randy back to his old life. So when Gordon starts shouting insults, as he does, Randy's still not giving in. Then everyone else shows up, Jamie Oliver, Bobby Flay, and all the other famous chefs. And since Gordon's there, they obviously need to hold a competition to see who can make the best cafeteria food. The kids haven't had lunch in 12 hours, but Randy suddenly realizes he left his cream at home, so he dashes out of the kitchen. When he gets home, he is tearing the place apart for it, only to find Sharon. She's so sick of that stupid workout machine that even wakes her up in the middle of the night with its alarm, and when she sees another girl using it, she completely loses it and storms back home. But let's get real here, folks. Shoving down crazy stuff like spicy ramen or whole avocados while dealing with potential side effects aren't the only ones getting hurt by the world of porn food. Yes, you heard that right. Every few days, there's a new viral food challenge popping up online that you've probably seen. And while some are harmless or just for fun, like the spicy noodle challenge where someone has to eat the spiciest Korean noodles without milk or water in a time limit, or the Bonnie Chubby challenge where you just stuff as many marshmallows in your mouth as you can, others are straight up insane. Let's talk about the infamous Tide Pod challenge, where teens decided to actually eat laundry detergent that looked like candy in front of a camera. It was horrifyingly popular, and a bunch of them ended up in the hospital. In 2018, a 15-year-old even died after eating one of those pods. Then, there was the cinnamon challenge. Sounds innocent enough, right? Just a spoonful of cinnamon. But that spoonful can get stuck in your throat, mess up your breathing, and in some cases, lead to choking. In 2017, a teenager lost his life because of it. Even adults got in on this insanity. A 34-year-old British guy died in 2020 after attempting the ghost pepper challenge by consuming multiple super spicy chilies. But it's not only humans facing the consequences. Even animal welfare organizations are up in arms because a lot of these mukbang videos involve eating seafood that is often raw or even alive. There was one infamous video of a girl trying to eat a live octopus, and the thing clung to her face. People were understandably upset, calling for tougher policies around animal treatment in these videos. To wrap up this stomach-turning topic, let's talk about the most insane deadly challenge I've ever seen, the NyQuil chicken challenge. Yes, some genius thought it'd be funny to cook chicken in NyQuil, which is meant for cold nut cooking. Besides releasing toxic fumes, eating this could potentially cause liver poisoning or even death. Whoever came up with this should definitely have been locked up. Of course, some people are trying to counter this madness with challenges that make sense. One of these was called Hunger Games, where participants went a day without eating and shared their experience to raise awareness about the world hunger. Any money raised went to food banks worldwide. There are even campaigns against this whole food challenge industry, though it is so profitable that shopping it is easier said than done. One group called Think, Eat, Save protests against the food waste and environmental impact, as around 1.3 billion tons of waste from this industry end up in landfills, often in developing countries. But how do we kick this crazy habit? Even though addiction to food content isn't technically a mental disorder, there are still some remedies. Cutting back on social media, limiting food content, and talking to a therapist about behavioral therapy can all help. Working with a nutritionist, or in extreme cases, taking antidepressants could also support anyone who's turning to food content to feel happy. After all, there's a difference between real serotonin from, say, exercise and the dopamine rush from watching someone else eat a burger. This whole food content industry has somehow pulled us in, whether it is through sharing local recipes or through crazy food challenges. Especially during quarantine, when everyone was stuck at home cooking or joining online challenges, it gave people something to do, a sense of togetherness. It was a time when everyone was baking bread, whipping up sweets, and dining online with loved ones. Honestly, COVID and quarantine played a big role in the rise of this industry. And to end on a fun note, let's talk about the 3 countries with the biggest food porn industries and the most internet food addicts. Drumroll, it is the United States, China, and India. Given their massive populations and ownership of big platforms, food content is basically a national hobby.